Well, it's September. We're at North Sails in Sydney in the loft, and we're talking to Paul Westlake. And Paul, once again, we're here for a chat. So what have you been doing since we had our last one? I believe you've been away in the 52s.
Yeah, hi Jeff. Yeah, it's been a busy few weeks since we last caught up. I think the last time we spoke, we were talking about the TP52 World Championships and how that being the pinnacle of that kind of class. Well, that's now been and done, and I find myself back on a plane tomorrow, heading to Porto for the last event for the circuit. So the Worlds in Portales was a great event, as we all expected it to be. Conditions were tough. It's flat water. It's very tactical sailing, mode sailing. But I mean, at the end of the day, the closeness of the points and the closeness of that final race showed the level this class is at now. At the end of the day, the scoreboard showed that first through third was separated by 3 points, and I think first through sixth was actually 7 points after a 9-race regatta. So, it's great racing. We all love it. We're blessed to be able to do what we can at that level. So heading to Porto, different event again for these boats, because this time of year I was just there for the Rolex Maxis last week. We had a combination of northeasterly gradient, westerly Mistral that nearly blew us off the water, and then light sea breezes. So back there kind of 2 weeks later, I expect that Porto will probably have us racing around the compass rose. I expect we're going to have a really good mixture of conditions, which will really suit being a bit greedy with the Brunonnesec. I mean, it'll suit our style. Still being the new guys on the block, we're still kind of working out. So working out our moding, working out how to get the best performance out of the boat. So throw a little bit of mystery with the wind, and then we have a coastal race for the first time this year. Normal point scoring, but that's a big race, because that's 10 boat fleet. You can look pretty good if you get a first, and you can look pretty average if you get a ninth. Considering, once again, the circuit is still open. First through fourth, we're standing fourth, and I think to first place is only like 17 points away. So 17 places in a 10 boat fleet, anything can happen.
It certainly can. So are you happy with the boat?
Yeah, we couldn't be happier. Our goal at the beginning of the year, I think we spoke probably 12 months ago when we announced we were doing this boat. Our goal was to be able to hit the water and be competitive against the teams that had already been a year ahead of us. Because recalling 9 new boats were built in 2018, so we were the old guys out launching this year. And we worked really hard to try and ensure that when we first went on the water and first started racing the boat, that we were at least in the ballpark, recognising we were a year behind. And I think we've shown that. And it's testament to Vladimir, our owner, his commitment to allowing us to kind of push the limits, but keeping everything into perspective. We're not a big budget team, we're not a wasteful team, but Vladimir has given us every opportunity. We've got great equipment at the end of the day. The boat, the winches, the rig, the sails, the crew, the whole camaraderie within our team is really strong. So we're really looking forward to this last event. We're fourth, we're almost in that position where people don't really care about us. So we're looking for some opportunities.
A lot of championships have won from fourth place.
Yeah, well, we're hoping, our goal, you hate to talk about your goal. Our goal for the season, right from the beginning, was to get on the podium in one event. Well, we've actually done that twice, culminating in the World. So, we're obviously, as a team, we're really hungry to see if we can upset one of the big guys and jump up on the podium. But as long as we do the best we can, we sail the best we can, we'll be happy. We'll leave Porto happy and pumped up for Cape Town next year. Cape Town starts in end of February. Before you know it, we're going to be off dealing with big winds.
Well and truly, off to Cape. Now, this time of year, it's all, especially in France, it's starting to hot up because the TJV, the Transact Jacques Fabre, is about to happen.
Yeah.
And there's 60 boats, So tell us, what's the story on that one? What do you think?
Yeah, you know, like astounding, really. You've got to hand it to the French marketplace and their love for this offshore racing and this what I call extreme sailing. You've heard me say it time and time again because it is extreme sailing. We look at the Sydney to Hobart. You know, we look at the recent race up to Hamilton Island and conditions like that where we're like, oh, it's big breeze downwind, big breeze downwind. And we talk about big breeze downwind being 30 knots here and we get all excited. These guys are going to go off. There's 60 boats, double-handed. You know, I think 6 of the 8 new IMOCA 60s have been launched and will be in this race with all their different foil configurations, rig configurations, sail configurations. Testing the limits, you've got, I believe, 2 or 3 50-foot multis, and the rest 27 class 40s. I mean, talk about extreme. They kind of start, they wobble their way up the coast of Brittany, and then they basically send it downwind until they hit the doldrums, wobble their way through the doldrums, and then send it and run into Brazil. I mean, how good does that look? But of course, you know, from a serious standpoint, there's a lot of focus on the IMOCAs, on the Open 60s. Huge amount because, you know, especially in our world, in the North Sales, North Technology Group arena, that's a big part of what we, that's pride, it's in our DNA, this extreme kind of sailing, high performance but high durability sailing, and then it also segues into the ocean race. So there's a lot of attention. You've got the Vendee Globe is only 12 months away, and so 6 of those new boats, two more yet to launch. Big focus for learning over the next kind of those 4,000 miles they're going to do. But then, boy, those guys go straight into single-handed mode for Vendee. And then you've got ocean race teams looking from the outside saying, okay, so which package is looking good in the breeze, which package is looking good to get across the doldrums. So a lot of fun, it's going to be fascinating to watch.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of interest as far as the ocean race is concerned because people are saying that all the slots are pretty well getting there.
Yeah, it seems like that. Obviously there's 2 classes. That's now been clarified by the ocean race. There's the Volvo 65s. You know, the expectation is to have 8 of those on the start line, and everything we know within our walls globally is that there will definitely be the 8 teams on the line, so that's awesome. And then you've got the Open 60s, the crude Open 60s, and that's just going to be pushing boundaries of development the whole way through, from learning what they can learn from the Vendee kind of single-handed, performance characteristics, hydro versus aero, routing, personal performance versus boat mechanics. Then you go and look at it from a crude standpoint and say, how hard can you push? So yeah, it's looking good. It's 2 years away, but boy, those 2 years are going to burn up pretty fast.
Well, it's really, and of course then we've got the America's Cup. 2 boats have been launched.
Yeah.
Come on, give us what you think about what this is all about. They're 2 different boats.
Yeah, 2 very different boats. It's been fun to watch. 18 months to the America's Cup. I remember my first America's Cup back in, I hate to admit it, 1983. With the Mighty Advance. I remember Alan Payne saying to us one day, he said, there's one thing you can't buy in the America's Cup, and that's time. Right. And he was absolutely right. And I know it's a kind of, today it's a throwaway line, but I've been living that paradigm since 1983 in my environment. I really look at that from a personal standpoint and a performance standpoint, business, on the water. You can't buy time. Well, man, the America's Cup is a classic for that, and just look at those 2 boats. The American Magic boat, very scale, very aero efficient hull, looking for trying to maximise or minimise the drag and maximise the efficiency once they're out of the water, versus the Team New Zealand boat. Quite a relatively, dare I say it, traditional looking hull. But then you look at the foil packages, the way they both looked at the foil solution, very, very different. So exciting times. I think we're expected to see Luna Rossa by the end of the month. Ineos must only be a couple of weeks away. I mean, by the time you get those four out on the water, I think there's going to be some fun social media watching.
What about your part of the pantomime is the sales?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's happening with the sales and how are they going?
Well, you know, the sales, we treat all that very much in confidence for each of the teams, but yeah, there's plenty of activity for sure. And this double-sided mainsail, I've heard two sides. I've had two people tell me from two different teams, one saying it's more complex than they could have ever imagined, and another saying that when you actually sit back and use a clean sheet of paper, that it's not as much of a challenge as they expected, and pleasantly surprised with the efficiency of the you know, the double-sided soft skin. So, you know, we often talk about trickle down and where that could kind of fit in and where the developments could go further after the America's Cup and further afield. You know, I do believe that if we can get, you know, if we can get increased efficiency from the flying shape and the control, depth and twist control of a mainsail out of this D-section mast and double skin sail, I can see that spreading and kind of having an effect much more broadly than you could ever imagine rigid wings, because the rigid wing is just, you know, it's a tough logistical exercise.
Well, we've seen that with the F-50s, haven't we?
Yeah, you look at, you know, if you've got a package like the F-50, the GP50 circuit, I mean, you can deal with that. But outside that, I think it's cool to see, you know, I just, you know, saw a little bit of footage of Team New Zealand just hoisting, you know, the double skin mainsail. You know, it was from a long way away, but I thought, well, that's kind of cool. There you go, they've towed out. They've put the boat head to wind, and there they are. Okay, there's a guy up the rig, but we need to have a guy up the rig on a Maxi 72 now because we don't have a halyard lock on them. So, or we're trying to, we have a halyard lock, but we want to save the weight of the main halyard, so we use a spinnaker halyard to hoist the main. I mean, the America's Cup started that, Team New Zealand started that back in 2000. So, I mean, it was kind of cool to actually see, I think the boats actually, you know, towing out and hoisting sails. So I think that'll be part of the game and part of the fanfare of the America's Cup. Seeing how each of the teams actually get off the dock, how they go out, how they hoist their sails. I think there's going to be a greater story than when you think of the America's Cup with the rigid sails. I mean, with the boats all kind of sitting there, you know, crane comes over, wing goes in, and before you know it, they're off doing 35 knots to the start area. There's going to be more of a show and more. I think there's going to be a lot more to watch. And as I call myself perhaps I'm a you know, a more knowledgeable you know, kind of backroom observer. I'm going to find it fascinating, and I think a lot of sailors will, because we'll be thinking more about what they're going through. Are they having to make decisions on mainsails? Do they have different mainsails? How are they making all their decisions with battens and stuff, instead of just, there's the wing, off you go?
Yeah, just put it up and go.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, the New Zealand team went out and went back to the shed. So, what do we know what's happening there?
I defer back to my point about you can't buy time, and I think that there's just, you know, a team like Team New Zealand, well, forget Team New Zealand, these America's Cup teams are incredibly good and incredibly structured, and they have plans on what they're trying to achieve, you know. And to me, looking from the outside, that really doesn't mean anything. You know, when you see them actually going sailing, as I said, I watch them kind of hoisting the sails and dropping them. To me, that's a systems check, you know, and they're, you know, all the boats have been, or both boats have been seen towing at 35 knots behind ribs and stuff like that. They've obviously got their different ways of doing system check. You know, American Magic came out of the shed and everybody was watching it for 3+ weeks before it actually, we saw it on the water. Well, Team New Zealand came out of the shed and 3 days later they're on the water. So, you know, you could argue, why did it take American Magic so long to actually go sailing? So, no, I think that's just all part of their programming and all part of that ticking the days off up until March 2021, where they need to be on the start line for the America's Cup.
Well, things are hotting up because locally the Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club have announced a race to New Zealand prior to the America's Cup, so, and they say they're getting a lot of information and acceptances.
Yeah, I think you just look at the America's Cup's an incredible draw card for our sport. There's no doubt about it. Between the Olympics and the America's Cup, they're the two big draw cards. I think they always will be. You know, World Championships as a competitor are a key part of what we do, and they're incredible. You know, they're a motivational kind of point for an owner and a team, whether they're doing a J70 World Championship, whether they're doing a laser World Championship, a FAR 40, a TP52, a Maxi 72, you know, the whole way through. But once you get off into the America's Cup and the Olympics, you know, what we've been seeing in Japan, the success of the Australian team in Japan, obviously, you know, that's where my heart is. So watching our successes there is awesome. But, you know, I think that the whole world of, you know, kind of World Championship, America's Cup, Olympics, and then heading off to ocean race, they're all part of this dedication that we have, and this kind of deep down competitive nature. It doesn't matter who you are in the sport, you're always going to achieve, and you're always going to have your own goals you want to achieve, whether it's your local yacht club, whether it's Royal Prince Alfred wanting to try and connect, you know, a passage race, no different to what Hamilton Island, what Sandy and the Oatley family put together to get the race to Hamilton Island. Look how much of a success that was. You know, now Royal Prince Alfred doing their thing with the race to Auckland. You know, Auckland just looks like, I don't know where everyone's going to go, honestly, in Auckland for the America's Cup. It's fantastic. I mean, the J class have just announced that they're all going to go back down there again, like they were in Bermuda. I mean, you go and put all the J boats there, you've got the Millennium Cup with the super yachts. TP52s are talking about going there, they're talking about having an IRC World Championship. I mean, you know,
fantastic.
Watch out, but maybe we're all going to be sitting on cruise liners or something.
We'll be there, don't
Yeah.
worry. Now locally, what's been happening around here? I noticed that there's been a bit of shed movement with some of the boats.
Yeah, well, I think we touched on this last time we spoke. I think Blackjack was going into the shed, and we just see Blackjack coming out of the shed, and man, looks cool. They've done they've done an awesome job there. Boat sure does look different. You know, the changes, you would argue, are relatively small. They're smaller than what Wild Oats went through a few years ago when they went and put a new bow section on and cut their transom off. But Mark Bagford and the team there, they're very, very dedicated on, they want to be first to Hobart, as do the other 4 100s. So this year again, here we go. You know, we've got 500 footers who are all just going to be going hell for leather to get to Hobart first, you know. So you've got Blackjack first on the water. They're actually, I was talking to Mark just last night, they're on the water tomorrow here in Sydney doing sea trials and some sail trials. They've got a bunch of new sails that have turned up as well to go with this new configuration. So they're on the water tomorrow. I mean, that's early, right? We're still in September, right?
That's right. Well,
I mean, but you know, good on them. And then I know Wild Oats, you know, their program gets up and running like the 3rd week of October as they get organised before Cabbage Tree. So I mean, I expect by Cabbage Tree and then into November, you know, November we're going to have, you know, 400 or 500 footers all scorching around. And then never underestimate the TP52s. The latest count for the TP52s is 12 for the Hobart race. You know? So, I mean, you know, there is plenty going on. So you've got, our head count at the moment is the 500s, 12 52s, 4 60 to 62s, you know, 3 or 4 70s, and then everybody else, you know. I mean, so it's going to be another fantastic year, and Boxing Day, here we come.
well, this is the 75th anniversary of the race, so it's going to be a big year.
Yeah, for sure. We've just had the 175th anniversary of the New York Yacht Club, and you know, everybody interested, you know, saw what a big event that was. And so the 75th Hobart, I mean, these milestones, they don't come along every day, obviously, and I think it is. You know, it's cool, and it's very cool that the support that you know, companies like Rolex give, and the credibility that having that notoriety and the global notoriety for race such as the Sydney to Hobart, no different to the Fastnet race, no different to the Maxi Worlds. We've got Middle Sea race yet to come, Voile Saint-Tropez. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, signature regattas yet to happen over the next kind of 6 weeks. By the time I come back, I'm away this next trip for just over 4 weeks, and by the time, I think that kind of culminates with the Nations Trophy, the big Swan event in Palma, where we're expecting 16 international teams there. I think that's pretty well the end of the Northern Hemisphere season. But come back here and it's all on here. The sea breezes are on, hopefully.
Well, that's what it's all about, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Now, do a little bit of a promo for North Sails. What are you guys working on that you can talk about?
Yeah, well, you know, the coverage this year has been very, very strong. The key, we continue to push the high durability, extreme, you know, what we call extreme use type development, and we've talked about that already, all the offshore sailing, but we come the whole way back. You know, you come through the TP52s. If you start off at the 100s, you know, the Wild Oats and the Blackjacks, and then you work your way back through the 60s, through the 52s, into the 40s, but then you come down to the, you know, these big fleets are still, you know, the J70s, the Melgus 20s, you know, Melgus 20 Europeans. I mean, you know, 3DI, you know, we've had a fantastic development path there. We just won the Europeans, so we've won the Worlds, we've won the Europeans. I mean, and that's on 20 footers. You know, honestly, when we started the 3DI kind of excursion, we always knew it was going to be a challenge and it was going to take a lot of work to be able to take that pure composite technology the whole way down into small boat sailing. So now we've got a class like the Melgus 20 who just accept it as just the norm, and then for a totally different kind of angle but high performance again, which is once again in our DNA, is this whole moth and the moth world. I mean, we all talk about, we've spent 15 minutes talking about big boats and foiling big boats, and we miss the ultimate tries because you never know what's going on there. But I mean, those things are foiling 110 plus, you know, foiling tries. I see Spinrift just announced they're back on the water after completely redoing all their rudders because the loads were too high on their T-foil rudders. So, I mean, but you come back to the Moss and talking to the guys here, I think in 2 weeks' time when Tom Slingsy gets back from Marseille, and all the best to Tom, obviously in Marseille this weekend and the team. They come back and go into a little camp with the moth testing that we've been doing because everyone's gearing up for the Worlds in Perth, you know. So we've got the likes of Scott Babbage, Rob Greenhalgh runs the whole thing for us and is you know, one of the best there is. Scott, Tom Slingsby, Matthew Chew's coming down from Brisbane, and we've got a camp because all those guys have been working kind of in connection with Francesco Bruni, Keko Bruni, who's been dominant in Europe and been doing a lot of work with us too. So they're kind of our test pilot guys. And so, you know, from Moss, from 3DI and Moss, the whole way up to, you know, what we've been talking about with the ultimate tries. As I said, just got off a plane late last week from the Maxi Worlds. I mean, everything's pushing the limit there, you know. I mean, there's, you know, every time we turn around, every time we go to a Maxi World and you have meetings with project managers and with, you know, potential with the big boat, the super yacht designers and the yards, they talk about bigger and bigger and bigger boats. I mean, and you know, I know we kind of sit at the table and go, okay, we're going to have to work out how to build sails for that. And the guys from Southern, you know, one of our parent companies, sit there and go, okay, we're going to have to work out how to build a rig for that.
Bigger rigs, yeah.
You know, the hardware guys, the Harkins, the Carvers, all these guys that are in the industry, the rope guys. I mean, they're scratching their head how to deal with, you know, with the demands of the way our sport and our passionate owners are going. So, you know, Jeff, from a moth through to, you know, a 200-foot super yacht, it's what we do, and you know, we love it. I mean, we're a global company, and we try and, you know, we really do try and be all things to all people. That's one of our things. I guess we have that luxury because we are as big as we are. You know, we owe that to our customer base because we are the big guys, but we have to be completely approachable, and that has to come from the top down. And the management team, we try really hard to make sure that we explore all avenues of our experience and enjoyment in this industry, because at the end of the day, our clients want to be able to hoist the sails, sheet them on, and achieve, whether it's win a race, whether it's get to the next lunchtime stopover when they're cruising, whether it's getting safely across a sea passage, an ocean, a lake, whatever it is. They've got to have reliability in their sails and everything that's associated with us, and that's what North Sails is really about.
Well, mate, thank you for your time. It's been very illuminating. And good luck with the 52s with Baronesek and your races over there. And we'll see you back here at the end of the year and the Hobart race.
Yeah, let's do it. We can do a little precursor to the Hobart race in November and see what the silver boat versus the black boat versus what colour's Comanche? I guess it's red. Versus Scallywag, Winnie will be back.
Scallywag will be here shortly.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And then this whole 52 and the 60, the IRC racing for this year's Blue Water Championships, obviously, which is very close to someone like Matt Allen's heart, versus Wine Honours, which is the hundreds. But then you've got in January, we've got the IRC Nationals and stuff like that. So that brings back into play the likes of Marcus Blackmore with Hooligan and the Zen and the Guilo, and it's all happening. We know we're going to be very, very busy and making sure that everybody keeps their dreams alive on the water.
Mate, that's very upbeat. It's very good for a positive outlook.
Gotta be.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Jeff.